In the U.S., stock index futures indicated a higher open as investors focus on earnings and monitor developments at a NATO summit in Brussels, Belgium. At around 3:20 a.m. Eastern Time, Dow futures rose 111 points, indicating a positive open of 111.55 points. Nasdaq and the S&P 500 futures also suggested positive opens at the start to trading sessions. Investors seem to be rebalancing their focus towards earnings and data, taking a breather from trade war concerns. On the earnings front, Delta Airlines and Commerce Bank are set to publish their results before the bell. There will be new jobless claims due at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time and inflation numbers due at same time. Both sets of data will be important to track the health of the U.S. economy and potentially equity performance in the coming months. And in Asia, stocks closed higher today, with markets shaking off some of the trade jitters seen overnight after the Trump administration announced a list of Chinese goods that may be subject to new tariffs. After the negative reaction in the last session to tariff announcements, China markets led the advance in the region. The Shanghai Composite paired all of Wednesday's sharp losses, closing up 2.18%, and the smaller Shenzhen Composite climbed 2.78%. The Nikkei 225 rose 1.17%. In Seoul, the Kospi added 0.19%. Elsewhere, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index edged up by 0.8%. Meanwhile, in Sydney, the S&P ASX 200 tacked on 0.85%. And back here, the National Bureau of Statistics will on Friday release the inflation numbers for the month of June. Most analysts are already projecting a further decline. An analyst at financial derivatives company forecast the figure will drop to 11.1% from 11.61%. So let's talk to one of the analysts, Temitope Olubile. Hey, Temitope, thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So headline inflation data will be released tomorrow, and it is forecast to decline to 11.1%. Well, that's your team there. However, items in the food basket such as rice, flour and palm oil have inched up. How will this affect your projections for the inflation?
Okay, so like you said, we at FDC, we're projecting a further decline in headline inflation for the 17th consecutive month to 11.1%, and month on month to 1.13%, and when annualized, that's about 14%. However, what we need to note of these projections are that it is a projection for June, that is June 2017 versus June 2018 for headline inflation, and May versus June for month-on-month inflation. And so the prices, the food items you mentioned, rice, palm oil and flour, that have increased, the increase occurred in July, and this may be due to seasonalities like the planting season and the security challenges which are affecting the food producing states. And so we don't expect that this increase would affect our projection for June. However, it might reflect in our projection for month-on-month inflation for July.
Okay, now the price of diesel is up 5.02% to about 230 naira per litre. How will this affect rural and urban inflation since diesel powers the trucks that are used to transport food items?
Okay, so the last inflation data that was released, which was the one for May, we saw that both rural and urban inflation increased to about 1.08% for rural and 1.1% for urban. And since that time, we've seen increased security challenges, like I mentioned, in the food producing states, which is already affecting the supply chain of these states. And we've also now, coupled with that, we have the increase in diesel price, which is used to power the trucks that transport food items from the rural to urban regions. And so these disruptions would affect the rural and urban inflation. But again, it will reflect in the rural and urban inflation for July, and maybe not for June, but definitely for July.
And is the decline in headline inflation likely to affect the MPC's decision at its meeting on July 23 and 24?
Okay, so the last time the MPC met in May, they voted to maintain status quo. That means they left benchmark interest rate at 14%. And one of the key considerations for them was the looming inflationary pressures in the second half of the year. So factors such as the 2018 budget implementation, increased election spending, and the likely minimum wage review would increase Naira liquidity in the second half, and so they voted to maintain status quo. So even if our projection is right and headline inflation declines to 11.1% for June, it is still above CBN's target of 6 to 9%, and there's still the risk of inflationary pressures as we approach the election season. So there's a 60% probability that MPC will vote to maintain status quo again, and despite the decline in inflation.
We'll wait and see, Temitope. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Temitope Olubile, one of the research analysts with Financial Derivatives Company here in Lagos. And a group of journalists promoting agriculture across the globe has admitted Nigeria as a member with a view to enhance agri reporting through shared information. The admittance formed part of the Dutch Roots Congress 2018 holding in the Netherlands. Channel's television correspondent Temple Ashaju now reports.
The International Federation of Agriculture Journalists is a group of media representatives from across the globe with focus on informed reporting of agriculture. On an annual basis, the journalists meet to explore the latest trend in agriculture and the application on reporting. This year, the host country is the Netherlands, and Dutch Roots, the local guild, is playing host to members from across the world.
It's about skills. It's about the products, it's about the knowledge, it's a genetic material, but also the technique that's from Holland going all over the world.
The meeting opens with the General Assembly of the Federation, where Nigeria and other developing countries were admitted.
It's only been the last few years when the FAJ has tried to figure out how to become more relevant to journalists in developing countries. And we've had to make constitutional changes in our organization to see that we can become more inclusive.
Nobody hears a lot of news out of Nigeria when it comes to agriculture. Here's an opportunity because now there's a new program there with agriculture being reformed. I know who I can talk to. People are always wondering. I know readers in my country wonder what is going on, not just in Nigeria, but in other countries.
The activities of Dutch Roots and the International Federation of Agriculture Journalists have been effective in represented countries over the years. With Nigeria now a member, the reporting of the federal government's agriculture sector reforms will be expected to have more knowledgeable reporting from representing journalists. From the venue of the Dutch Roots 2018 Congress in Wageningen, the Netherlands, it's Temple Ashaju reporting for Channel's Television News.